All right, we're doing 6.7 today, which is over dividing polynomials. And we can divide them sometimes by factoring. And we're actually going to skip these examples. So sometimes we can factor and that helps us divide, but I'm going to show you a method that always works even when factoring doesn't. And this is called synthetic division. And it's kind of a little, when I show it to you, the first or second example, you're going to be confused because it's something just totally different than what we do. It's kind of similar to just regular division that you learned in that you kind of do the same steps, but it just looks really confusing. But once we get to like the second, third, fourth examples and you get the process down pat, it goes really quick. And everybody last class at the very beginning, they were like, this is so hard, I don't understand. And then by the end, when we were doing several examples, they were getting them done really quick. So before you give up on synthetic division, just give it a few examples until you catch the process down. So synthetic division is used whenever factoring isn't an option. So we've not done any dividing. Usually we would do some division where we use factoring, but to save on time, we kind of skipped that. And we're just doing synthetic division because you can always do this on any of the problems where you're dividing. Now, if the remainder is 0, so remember when you did long division, if there was a number left over, you called that a remainder. And you will have a remainder on these problems. So if the remainder is 0, you have found an x-intercept. So I'm not going to just because we're really short on time, but some other questions I give you, I could say, here are 3 numbers. You tell me which one is an x-intercept. And you would be doing synthetic division to figure that out. So here is the process for doing synthetic division. Step 1, we have to set up the problem. And I've actually put in some boxes here to help you keep your work organized, and you'll kind of follow this format every time. You just won't actually draw in all these boxes. But in the top left corner, we put a number. And the number that we put is the opposite of what we're dividing by. So I'm dividing by x minus 10. So I'm going to put a positive 10 in this corner. You put the opposite. So negative, positive, positive, negative. So if this said x plus 2, what would I put in this corner? Negative 2. Good. Then across the top, we write the coefficients. Coefficients are numbers in front of the x's. So what number is in front of this x to the 4th? 1. So that number goes first. And then what number? Then what? Negative 75. 51. And negative 11. Good job. So that's basically the problem setup. What does step 2 say? Bring down the first number. So my first number is 1. You're going to draw an arrow and bring that number down. And from there on, we are going to repeat steps 3 and 4 until we get all the way across. Multiply, add. Multiply, add. So we multiplied this number on the bottom by 10. And I get what? 10. 1 times 10 is 10. And then we add straight down. Negative 3 plus 10 is what? 7. And then we multiply. and I get 70. So that goes here. And then we add straight down to get -5. Then I multiply, and I get -50. And then I add to get 1. And then I multiply to get 10. And then I add straight down to get -1. So these numbers are going to help me formulate my answer. These numbers are my new coefficients. And so I'll show you how we write out our answer. Okay. And we're going to work right to left. So this far right number is always your remainder. The last number is your remainder. And then in my answer, this number, I'm just going to leave it as a 1. I'm not going to put any x's with it at all. Kind of like back up here, this was a -11. It's just going to be a +1. This number, I'm going to put an x beside of it. The next one is going to get an x squared. What do you think the next one might get? X to the third, x cubed. Because I went from x to the first, to the second, to the third. If I had another number after that, what would that one get? X to the fourth, and you would just keep building, depending on how many numbers you had. So my answer is 1x cubed, so 1x cubed plus 7x squared minus 5x plus 1. And then your remainder, you always put whatever you were dividing by underneath your remainder. So it's going to be minus 1 over x minus 10. And so when I divide these two, this is the answer that I get. I could type that in the calculator. I could store a random number for x. If I type in x to the fourth minus 3x cubed minus 75x squared plus 51x minus 11, divided by x minus 10, I get that random number of 276.2. Now my answer, 1x cubed plus, 7x squared minus 5x plus 1 minus 1 over x minus 10. Those are both 276.2 when I look at them as a fraction, as a decimal. So they match, so I did it correct. Don't write 276.2 on your paper. Okay, that number is not important. So let's go to another example. This one is written a little bit different, but it means the same thing. I just wanted you to see both ways of having that question. So this is 2x squared minus 16x plus 19 divided by x minus 7. So I got a corner box. I always like to draw that little backwards L shape. You can draw a complete square if you want. What goes in my corner box? Positive 7. I'm dividing by x minus 7. You always put that opposite number in your box. Well, I don't want to say always bottom because this one doesn't have a bottom. It's what you're dividing by. When you see a fraction bar, that basically means divided by. So either way, it's this one, this is what I'm dividing by. So positive. It's the opposite of that number. And then what goes out beside of this box? Just the numbers. Just the numbers. So 2. Yep. When you're doing these, leave a space. Leave a decent sized space because you have to keep your numbers lined up. Some people in the last class were not doing that, and that threw them way off, and it made it more confusing. You've got to have enough space to line your numbers up. And then leave a space and draw a line. All right, so first, we bring down the first number. So bring down the 2. Then what do I do? Multiply the 2 and the 7. And that goes here. 14 goes there. And then what do I do? Add. Well, first I add these two. What do I get when I add these two? -2. And then I multiply those two. And what do we get? -14. And then what do I do? Add to get 5. So notice how everything lines up in a straight column. We have to figure out what our answer is. 5 is what? It's a remainder. -2 is just a plain number, which we call a constant. What goes next? Just x. X first, then x squared, then x cubed, then x to the 4th. So my final answer is 2x minus 2. It's just a number. It doesn't have any x's with it. Plus what? What did I say to do with that remainder? 5 over x minus 7. Because remember, your remainder, you put that under your remainder. Now, if you feel like you have this, don't work ahead past number 4 because you'll mess up. Number 4, what goes in my corner box? 2. +2. What numbers go across the top? Good. Leave a space and draw a line. First, bring down the first number, that 1. Draw an arrow. Get in the habit of drawing an arrow because if you don't, you're going to put that 1 right there. Get in the habit of drawing an arrow down. 2 times 1 is 2. So multiply, add. What's 5 plus 2? 7. Multiply, 14. Add, +7. -7 plus 14 is 7. multiply 14, add 16. Good. All right, this last number is my remainder. This one is just a plain number. What does this one get? Then I get a x squared. So my final answer is 1x squared. You don't necessarily have to put the 1. Plus 7x plus 7. And then plus what? 16 over x minus 2. Very good. Look at number 5. Is there anything that kind of sticks out to you? Yes, there is a plus instead of a minus. That's something different, but not what I'm looking for. This is specifically something about the numerator. It's missing the x to the second. That's something you've got to watch out for, because if it's missing one of those terms in between, you have to put a 0 across the top. So I'm going to go from 1, and then after the 1, I'm going to put a 0 because I have 0x squareds. If you don't do that, it'll mess up your problem. Okay. So in my corner box, I have what? -5. It's always the opposite of what we're dividing by. And then I've got 1x cubed, just so my 1. 0 for my missing x squared. Then I have -17 and 32. So anything that is missing there in between, you have to put a 0 in its place. Leave a space and draw a line. Bring down the first number, which is 1. Then what? Multiply these two, and I get -5. Then we add -5. Then we multiply, which is 25. Then I add, and I get 8. Then I multiply -40. And I add, and I get -8. This last number is your remainder. This one's just your plain number. This one gets an x. This one gets an x squared. So my final answer is 1x squared minus 5x plus 8 minus what? 8 over x plus 5. Number 6. What goes in my corner box? 8. Go ahead and fill out the numbers across the top. What are you missing? An x squared. So x squared goes between these two. So the 0 would go between those two. So we would have 8, negative 64, 0, because I'm missing the x squared between those two. 3, negative 28. So bring down the 8. And then I multiply. 8 times 8 is 64. What do I get when I add straight down? 0. What's 8 times 0? 0. What's 0 plus 0? 0. What's 8 times 0? 0. What's 3 plus 0? 3. And 8 times 3? 24. And then what do I get when I add those two? Negative 4. Very good. So this number gets my remainder. This one's just a plain number. Then we have x, x squared, x cubed. Now, anything that has a 0, you don't have to write that down as part of your answer. So this one is 8x cubed plus 3, because that one's just a plain number, minus 4 over x minus 8.
So we don't have to write x to the second x?
We don't write anything that has a 0 with it. Because if you put x squared, that would really be 1x squared, not 0x squared. I want you to try number 7 and 8. And I'm going to come around and help you. Make sure that you are looking out to see if there are any missing terms.